And this is interesting. This is a set of questions again from you. Is there a common vision for what we want future Scotland to be? What priorities and sacrifices? And how is it most likely to be delivered? And what about the gap north and south of the border? There isn't a huge gap in terms of public opinion north and south of the border in terms of what things are valued. In public opinion, both Scotland and the rest of the UK have moved somewhat more to the right than they were 20 years ago. What is different, there are some differences around public education and so on, but what is different is the political culture that dominates Scottish politics and that dominates Westminster politics, and that means that the public policies that governments pass or are likely to pass into the future are increasingly different north and south of the border. Is there a common vision for what we want in a future Scotland? Partly. I've heard quite a few people comment. I don't know if you saw the debate that was on STV last week, and you had Kezia Dugdale, the Labour MSP, and Elaine C. Smith for the Yes campaign, and they were both finding it quite difficult to disagree with each other about what they wanted. So there is a broad social democratic consensus among the two biggest parties in Scotland, but they don't agree on everything. And there are some debates that would have to take place about the priorities that we should have and about the sacrifices that would have to be made. A proper debate about the level of immigration that we need. A proper debate about how much taxes we really should be paying. A proper debate about whether it's appropriate for the level of wage inequality to be as stark as it is in Scotland, which is very different from, say, the Nordic countries that we seem to want to emulate. So, either way, yes or no, I think these debates need to take place as we look to the future.
Thank you. So, what we're going to do now is ask you to join, to go into groups and to discuss your reactions to what Nicola said, and particularly if there are things that you want more information on or you want to be explained in a different way.
I was sitting talking to my daughter, 50-year-old girl, the other day there, and I suddenly realised, you know, the maturity of the debate in Scotland that's taking place, there isn't like warring partner. There's obviously disagreements, but there's not some real kind of, there's passion, there's opposing sides, there's opposing ideas, but there's not a kind of fight or a war or the dirty side. From my perspective, it seems like a real mature debate that the population of Scotland are having.
Just asked my son today, because we had never discussed it, he doesn't stay at home now, what his thoughts were, you know, but I've just not had a chance to ask him, you know, so as you say, it really is quite important to probably just to try and bounce some ideas from people that you know and that you sort of like know and work with, you know. But
I think the people that are going to decide they're scared to vote for something, like say jobs. If they vote for no, they'll lose their job. If they vote for yes, they'll lose their job. Yeah. And I think people are just scared that if they vote that thing, they might lose their job. So they're trying to figure out what's the best one to go for.
The no argument, it's all predicated on we'll share it, we'll share everything, you know, so, you know, it's like fail, you know, the likelihood is you're going to fail, you know, the time, rather than saying, you know, trying to accentuate the positives and having, you know, that's the problem with the no campaign. That's what it's always going to be, you don't have the resources, therefore you need to depend on the bigger, you know, the bigger population.
Whether you vote yes or no, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future. So, you know, I know people are worried about voting yes because they think there are too many uncertainties, but there is uncertainty about the future, whether you're part of the UK or an independent country. And the reason I'm voting yes is because I think that Scotland should make up its own mind about how it wants to go. You know, there are 5 million people in the country, and, you know, we would be making decisions, or the Scottish Parliament would be making decisions based on the interests of the people in Scotland. So, you know, if you've got a country of 5 million people, you're more likely to get people making decisions about the way forward that are going to accord with what people want.
this man wants to do away with Trident. Wants to what? Do away with Trident.
I think that there are two different, totally different views on two different positions. Both of them merit. I mean, I was convinced by Nicola Sturgeon's. Not Nicola Sturgeon.
What the fuck at North South going to do?
Well, the Nationalists apparently have got a plan for that, which is to establish the centre for Scottish forces in that area.
Even if they don't.
And keep therefore keep the economy going.
Even if they don't have a plan for that, it's not really to provide employment for somebody. I mean, you might as well say, we can't get rid of the gas ovens at Auschwitz because it'll lead to unemployment for people. I mean, that's just a ridiculous argument if you don't mind me saying so.
Well, what's he going to spend £20 billion quid on that?
From getting rid of Trident, you think that's a bad thing?
I'm just saying, what would he spend his money on?
Oh, I don't know.
There's lots of things to be. There's loads and loads of stuff that we can be spending.
Mentioned something.
Isn't the big issue though what Scotland's defence
but
policy
governments
is?
in the past Labour and Conservative, right?
I beg your pardon?
If the governments in the past Labour and Conservative, right? I could punch holes through my wall. They've done anything for my lot? No. They've done anything to improve my standard of life? No.
So what
And yet people, year after year, people voting Labour and all the rest of it, right?
Well, of course they didn't vote Labour last time.
Yes.
It's changed.
For the first time in a generation for a lot of people.
So what would you like them to do?
Spend it on something decent, but there's vagueness.
But certainly their intentions are clear. They want to invest a lot of money in social democracy, in social benefits, in welfare, in health, in education, in promoting the economy, all of those things.
Well, we're supposed to be promoting education, right? Promoting education. That's a good, very salient point, right? They're giving the vote in this referendum to 16-year-olds, correct? If I'm wrong? That's correct. Right? I didn't see many 16-year-olds round about here.
Well, maybe they've already made up their minds.
I still didn't see many of them.
Maybe they don't need to come to sessions like this.
Maybe they're still in school discussing it in school. I mean, this place just... This is
it.
Primary school. Yeah, maybe they've had enough.
These 16-year-olds are voting something as important as this, right? Yet, a 16-year-old can't go down to your local, they can join the army, correct me if I'm wrong, as a boy soldier, because I was one of them, right?
The youngsters today are actually taking a very active interest in this, and it surprised people. It surprised me that the 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds are being so mature about it, and I've got great confidence that they will.
Mature 16-year-olds? Mature 16-year-olds? Where? I didn't see many.
Well,
how much contact do you have with young people?
Certainly on the Pennywell Road, and this lady is just
they seem to be as informed or as uninformed as everybody else, and they're intelligent, they're well educated, I think.
And they're going to live longer.
And they're going to live longer.
It's
their
consequences.
Future. I would even argue that people who aged between 16 and 35 should be given 2 votes, and we should be given 1 vote, because they're going to have to live with it. They're going to have to live with the consequences.
People living on very, very low incomes. Benefit has been frozen for 3 years, while bankers walk off with large salaries, and not a single banker has been charged with any crime. So I feel it's time that, for us to take things into our own hands and to make our own decisions and to have a government that we elect. That's important to me, and I think that's only right and proper.
But there seems to be one fact that is actually totally kind of clear, is that the Scottish government that you elect is the one you get. Whereas we know from, as you described it, that the current context would be that if we elect a government, it depends on what happens in England and the rest of the UK. But with independence, then it's very clear that you get the government of your country.
It's the government that the majority has voted for.
Yeah,
that's
what
you would get.
Yeah. So that's something that's clear.
That's not happening just now.
Yeah, that's not happening. But that would actually be very, very clear, very indisputable.
It should be brilliant. Actually, it'd be quite surprising, and suddenly, actually we are getting the government that we voted for. It'd be great.
It's also
but,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say very quickly, following on from your point about all the bankers and that. I still think there is. I suspect that if we do get independence, we're going to suddenly realise, oh, there's greedy people in our society too, and there's going to be the equivalent of
This lady
bankers.
said it's not about getting independence and sitting on your backside, it's getting up then and keeping going with the issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, one of the key issues that we would like more information on, or we think we should sort of comment back to the speaker.
I wouldn't necessarily say that this is a key issue, but this is something which my mum raised yesterday. So for me, I'm Scottish but living in England. Say that theoretically my mum was Scottish, so therefore I had no right to a British passport. If Scotland becomes independent and England leaves the EU, I then theoretically would lose my right to stay in England, because I would not be able, it's not another EU country and I'm from a foreign country, so what happens then?
One of the issues that you raised, and you raised too, is the issue of services, resources. I think you mentioned kind of inequality. Is that something that we want to, is that, you know, we might notice inequality here. Is that something that is an issue for people?
Yes, it's a main issue for me.
Main issue for you?
Yes.
It certainly is why I'm going to be voting yes. It's one of the big reasons.
I'd like more information about how the government will be set up. You know, if it is a yes vote, how what the immediate future is, how the government's going to be set up, and all the discussions that are going to go on between the different parties to.
Actually, like do we get more seats in Holyrood or what?
So, regardless of whether you vote yes or no, you're never going to be able to predict the future anyway. You know what I mean? If you vote no, that's also a scary option, because we don't know what the government in the UK is going to be, or what decisions they're going to make.
What's being said at the far end of it, the uncertainty of the future anyway, no matter whether you vote yes or whether you vote no. I was kind of thinking about what you were saying about kind of the campaigns that were discussed as well. Is the campaigns, the two sides of the campaigns, have these answered your questions? Have these helped you make up your mind? Or?
Every side has, you put forward an argument and every side has a counter-argument. So no matter what you say, because it's in their interest to put forward that counter-argument. So it's very difficult. And for me it comes down to just my emotional feeling of, and I was very surprised by what she said, that there was very little difference between the culture of the Scottish people and the culture of the rest of the UK. I would disagree, because I think that's what's swaying it for me, is the fact that I like being here, I like the feeling of social inclusion that Scotland gives you, and I don't get that in the rest of the UK, and I think possibly there's a small gap there now, but I see it diverging, and I want to be part of that side which goes to social inclusion rather than the side which goes for greed is good and get everything you can, and privatisation and money's the best is what everybody's after. It's not the most important thing in a society. The most important thing in society are people and looking after people, and that's what's swaying me towards the yes vote, because that's what I'm getting from the yes campaign. I'm not getting from the no campaign. I'm getting that from, stay with what we are, and I don't like what we are going towards as a country, a United Kingdom.
We're making big stereotypes here about England and Scotland.
Like, I don't feel I'm any different from all my English friends. In fact, I've got English friends and relatives in Scotland that are voting yes. So I feel to the credit of the yes side, they're not dwelling on differences. They're just saying this is a way, an opportunity for the Scottish people to resolve all these problems that we just never seem to be able to get to the bottom of as part of, the whole UK clash-ridden country that we sort of exist in at the moment. So I think it's more a positive message.
I do have fears about that involves risk as well, about currency, about mortgages, pensions, but it's about kind of value. The decision is probably going to be value-driven.
I'm looking at the differences here, and I want to be part of the Scottish difference, rather than the rest of the UK, and we're a small nation, and I don't want to be swallowed up by that attitude of greed is good and get everything you can for yourself.
So the things that are kind of the same countrywide are the things that the Westminster government still have control of, but the things that are fundamentally now becoming very different are education and health, both of which are devolved, the two most major devolved things in the Scottish Parliament. So to me it proves to me that we can kind of exercise the general political will of the Scottish people when we've got control of those things in a way that we just didn't seem to be able to do when those, the health service was going the same way as the English health service prior to the Scottish Parliament coming into being, because trusts and all the rest of it came into being in 1990 and Scotland went down that route. When we got our Parliament, the trusts was completely kind of reorganised again to kind of try and get it back to a more traditional NHS kind of model.
Okay, the moment can feedback. One is about kind of what happens in the case of a yes vote. How is the Scottish Government, what is the immediate sort of consequences? Next steps. Number of MSPs and so on. We've got inequality of services, key issues. Anything else that people want to raise?
Expatriate people. A really loopy government might want to throw them out.
Certainly,
loopy people do find themselves in charge.
As Nicola said that she felt we would stay within the EU.
Yeah.
She said that clearly. Well, again, she's not got a crystal ball, she's kept saying, but she was able to speculate.
I mean, I think the point she was making is that there are no commentators, academic commentators, seriously believing that Scotland would not become part of the EU. I mean, there may be some temporary hiatus, but the kind of long-term situation would be very clear, I think.
That's not a question to form, but you know what I mean.
I'll sneak into 2A and B.